Hello everyone. In this video we'll be talking about a introduction to BoxCutter and what you can use it for and expect to use it with it. So let's go ahead and get started. Installing BoxCutter is the same way as installing HardOps. In fact, I install all add-ons the same way by dragging them into the folder. We'll just type in the word box and we'll look at our BoxCutter options here. You can enable the border. You can choose where you want the logo for BoxCutter to be at whenever BoxCutter is started with Alt-W. You can choose how the grid looks, the color of the grid. You can also change the color of the indicator and the border. For this video, let's go with the yellow. And I'm just going to copy and paste it into the second field as well. There's a fix for Blender versions below 2.79 if your Pi menu is showing up strangely. There's a HardOps connection, which I'm just going to enable because I don't use BoxCutter without HardOps. And same for display help in BoxCutter. We'll leave that up. All the rest of the options are best at their defaults. There's also a key map area where the only key map is Alt-W. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So we'll first center our cursor. Screencast keys will more than likely not work for this video since Alt-W will start us in a BoxCutter state and will no longer say what buttons we're pressing in that state except for certain ones. So from the beginning, Alt-W starts BoxCutter. With this mode up, holding Control and left clicking will draw boxes, which will cut all the way through the object. If we put our cursor here, we can draw a box, but while holding Alt and then letting go, we can cut to a depth. So we'll go down a little bit further and we will cut again. This time I'm going to press Tab, which will put us in an edit mode of sorts. Now in this mode we can move things around, but also using the middle mouse button on the outside of the shape we can bevel it. We can also move it around. You can press C to cut to cursor, double click, and it's applied. And you can see over here that the help changes as we're working. So we've worked quite hard on ensuring that BoxCutter is a easy to use and understand application. Now over the course of this video I'll be using a little bit of HardOps, but mostly BoxCutter. And when I say a little bit of HardOps, I mean I'm gonna have to press Alt-X. I'm gonna have to press a lot. It's just habitual. I'm also going to be using sharpening. So that's from the last video, of course. If you saw the introduction to HardOps, I'll be marking sharps and going with C sharpening to set this up. So with that, let's go ahead and continue. So I'll press Alt-X to keep my symmetry. And another thing you might notice is we have mirror. By just clicking the X, we can just turn off the mirror, or I think if you hold Shift while clicking it, you can just turn it off, or you can turn it on for multiple axes at the same time. However, in most cases, I just use X mirror. So in addition to the red box, there is the yellow box, where if you're holding Control Shift, when you drag out the box, it will be yellow. And we'll just bevel just this one side. So we're just middle mouse clicking this single edge because I tabbed into edit mode while drawing the box. No cursor, so we'll just double click, and now we slice that piece off. So with this piece, we'll just do another yellow box and cut that off. So with BoxCutter up, we can press Shift Z, that'll bring up the grid. Now the grid doesn't currently match up with Blender's grid. It's an arbitrary grid just for BoxCutter. However, that may change in the future. So right here, you see I'm just drawing boxes, beveling them around, and applying them. This is something I do quite a bit. In fact, we're discussing the creation of a new tool called Simple Shape. And the rounded circle will more than likely be the first simple shape in that collection. Also in the future there may be BoxCutter collections for custom shapes. we were discussing how silly it would be to cut out a star. It's like, how often would you cut a star into an object? For me, it would be never. This is BoxCutter, not Cookie Cutter. So we'll click here, and I'm just going to draw a red box, tab into edit mode, bevel just this one side, roll the wheel to lower the amount of segments, press C, and double click. Actually, wrong piece was selected. Let's try that again. Tab, middle mouse button, C. We don't want that one beveled. And voila. So this is just the basics of BoxCutter. Now, in previous videos, or in the past, I should say, I've discussed the difference between carve and bmesh and why I use carve and not bmesh. Carve is more reliable and will more than likely 9 times out of 10 get you a boolean. Bmesh will 4 times out of 10 get you a boolean, and if it does get a boolean, it will be a nice boolean, unlike carve, which will get you a boolean whether it's ugly, preferably if it's ugly, which is why, you know, HardOps has features like clean mesh and whatnot, because the little pieces that get left over sometimes can cause some issues. So right here, I keep pressing D for decal machine. D also brings up the D menu for BoxCutter. So if you're in BoxCutter mode, you're not going to be using decal machine and vice versa. But whenever you're done with BoxCutter, you can always just press escape to get rid of the border / bring the border up. In fact, sometimes I just press escape to get rid of the grid, but really, wrong object was selected. It happens. I don't know why I'm less articulate today. I thought by drinking a bunch of coffee I would be on the ball. So we're just going to reduce the amount of segments in there, so that way we can lower the B width and make this piece work out. Anytime that you cut smaller and smaller things in, there's always going to be a compromise on the bevel. So that'll be gone in more in depth when we start talking about step and how it's changed from C-step. But as you can see, I'm just going in here and just cutting in some little angles. Now, the thing about these angles is that if you press Alt and Shift and you middle mouse click on a face, let's turn off the grid, you will align your view to that face. So this is definitely one of the most important things that we've added to BoxCutter, in my opinion, because dealing with angle cuts is just one of those things that would be tricky in the past. In fact, right here we can see there's a little bit of offset, so I don't know what caused that. But with all tools, of course, expect glitches, and as always, like I always say, you got to roll with the punches. Sometimes these things happen. You just got to make it to the end of the project and then troubleshoot to find out what happened. But right here, we're going to press L to select this one and delete it, and then we're going to mirror it across to the other side. So as you can see, BoxCutter and HardOps together are quite the combination, and is pretty much the secret behind all of my speed, in addition to other tools that have been mentioned in previous videos and tools that will soon be mentioned. In fact, currently I'm working with the Creative Group Pro to try to get a discount for operatives, so that way we can get more copies of that tool out there, because Group Pro is definitely an essential tool, and most of the comments that I see on it are it's out of my price range, or ooh, that's a little pricey, which I can definitely understand. I didn't actually need to cut to cursor depth there. However, we also have some garbage to remove. Real quick, just remove it. So, like before, Control Shift drag for the yellow box. We'll middle mouse button drag on a point to get it to bevel. Double click. And it looks like we have garbage back. So cleaning up this garbage, it just ensures that you have an easier time going forward. The workflow that you're seeing here is quite destructive. There's also a non-destructive variant. For example, if you're wanting to, let's actually get rid of this side and mirror it to this side, and we're just going to use clean mesh on this. So the difference between having BoxCutter with the hard ops connection and BoxCutter without it is the automatic beveling that happens whenever cuts occur. And we will take this edge and demote it. So there are a couple of tools here at our disposal. In fact, I think in a hard ops video I mentioned how in BoxCutter there's a fast bisect mode where if you press Control D, it'll put you in this state where when you click and drag, you'll be able to basically force geometry, similar to when I press knife and I cut, except the bisect will go all the way through the object. So sometimes that's desired, sometimes it's not desired, but it does come in handy for hard ops. So right here, I'm just going to draw a circle. So I went in D, selected circle, and I'm just going to draw a circle, and I'm going to press Control C, which will put me in a move mode. But also what it does is if I press Control V, it'll give me back the circle I just made. So the shape library is in a limited state at this moment where you can call shapes back from memory. However, there's all sorts of improvements that are needing to happen with it before it is a more prominent feature. So the next one I'll show you is N-Gon. N-Gon is just you drawing a shape, and cutting it. So here we have cursor depth, and we've just took it down a little distance, and we could probably even repeat this in this area. So now you can kind of see that when I was in the BoxCutter video, I mean in the hard ops video using cubes, that it might be for old time's sake, just to kind of show y'all just how the Boolean workflow is, but really I'm all about the BoxCutter nowadays. So to show you how it behaves, not only with hard ops more intimately, but also just in general behavior, is we'll go here and we'll choose Apply Boolean, and we'll bevel one edge, and we'll just double click. So now you see that this Boolean is still live, meaning that we can do things to it, such as change to B width. In fact, for this one, I see that I'll need to go in and automatically turn off clamp overlap for these objects. So if you experience that, I apologize. And so we'll raise it up a little bit. I see what's happening. All the edges are beveled. If we look at the original geo, there's two edges there, there's two edges there, so we're not going to get a large bevel that's going to work out, or will we? I will just dissolve edges that aren't needed. Alright, and then we'll C/. In fact, let's try that again. The Boolean is there. And for some reason, it gave us a little bit of an error here. I wonder what is causing that. So you know what? We'll roll with the punches. I'll check that and see if there's an update needing to be done there. Alright, so the modifier stack order of course matters in this situation. We want to thicken it before we bevel it, or vice versa. I mean, really in this case, there's an oddity happening that you know, just should not be happening. So I'm just going to lower the thickness here. And we're going to delete half of it because maybe that's the bad half. We'll C-sharpen it. We'll delete that. So by giving it the thickness, I just made it where this piece was easier to separate and put over here on the other side. No use fighting forever. But I think I did find a glitch here in this public demo that I'll need to resolve. So I apologize about that. So as you can see, using it non-destructively, it has its place. In fact, being able to just draw this stuff and then edit it after the fact, using the options that are provided by HardOps can make for quite an enjoyable workflow. Even before Decal Maker came out, I was box crazy about BoxCutter. Probably made like 800 bionic cubes just over the course of all these plugins and testing them. You know, box cuts is my favorite way to test if a new update's working right. That's not what I want to do, but let's just roll with it. So give it a little bit of thickness and we'll sharpen. We'll separate, mirror, we'll mirror. So mirror is the process of mirroring it across another object. Mirror is just me just making both sides symmetrical. Alright, and usually with these sort of angled box cuts, I always know that there's one edge that doesn't get sharpened from the transition. So just going in and fixing that real quick makes it a lot easier. And so I'm just drawing boxes. In fact, you know, now let's go back to default cutting behavior. In fact, you also have an option for remove cutters. So let's say you wanted to cut, but you want to reuse your cut somewhere else after applying it. Now the strange part about this tool is that it puts it in B-mesh mode, or B-box mesh, or bounding box mesh, however you want to put it. That's also possibly a glitch that I'll be looking into. So we talked about that one. Split yellow box will determine the behavior of whether splitting geo actually creates a separate mesh out of it. So here you see I did a cut, but the cut is still there. This can have its place in times where you're wanting to just keep objects together and deal with separation at a later time. However, by default, we keep split yellow box on. But you know, HardOps even has some features for that, right? Like let's say we had a big B width here, but we want this object to have a lower B width. So here I'm going to use HardOps, press Q, choose B weight, lower to B weight, and then press A, and it will expand to that whole manifold object. So now this object that's in the back actually has a smaller bevel width than these larger objects, making it easier for me to have a big bevel on certain areas and a smaller bevel on others. But really, you could just separate it with P and it's just done. Now, there's a series of other interesting behaviors that we've been playing with since BoxCutter and HardOpt's connection. One of them is if you're in this Alt-D menu and you just draw a box on the outside with two objects selected, you can just quickly just cut into something. So this is kind of like ZBrush in a way, intended for people, you know, using tablets who maybe don't want to touch the keyboard as much. But these are things that sometimes I forget we even have, because that's what happens when you don't use a particular feature. You forget that it's there. But the borders have went through some upgrades. Another example is we'll take this cube, and if we just draw a let's see, I think it's with only two selected. Sorry, I shouldn't try to experiment in the video. But we also have a click sharpening. So if you hold Control and you click an object, you'll just do like this sharpening to it, right? Like let's say this object was C sharp. I mean, we wouldn't use a C sharp object to boolean another object, because that's just crazy, okay? But for example, we can we'll just turn off sharpening for this part, and so just by Control clicking it, I'm able to update that information to make it more accurate. In fact, like here's an area where I just removed the sharpening. You can see that when I Control click, it will begin to apply the sharpening. So let's actually take this piece and we'll just clear the sharps, so that way it's a neutral piece, not going to cut sharp information in that will cause a bevel to bevel. And Control minus. But Control minus is so old school, you know, when we could Shift select it and just hold Control and just left click, and it will just do it and smooth it and be done. So there's quite a few different approaches when it comes to using BoxCutter, but its basic purpose is still the same. Just cut boxes, just cut, or not even boxes, just cut and be quick and be done is the idea behind it. Of course, over time we've adjusted our focus a little bit to make it more accurate, more useful. In fact, I haven't even begun to get into this super advanced stuff yet, outside of the view line, or the view adjustment with Alt, Shift, and middle mouse button. So we'll Control click to just slap it in there and C sharp and be done. Now personally, this is a part of the workflow that oh god, someone's messaging me, stop. Alright, so back to the video. Let me make sure no more notification. Alright, I took a brief moment to answer that guy's question. So now I'm back to the video. So where was I? Ah yes, advanced features of BoxCutter. So we will just place this piece here, hold Control and click, and it's just done. In fact, we might do some improvements on this one-click business, because I could see that we could maybe put a tree of behaviors as part of that and have it doing some really advanced stuff whenever you're Control clicking. So stay tuned for more BoxCutter. I must admit, as I use these tools, I can't help but think of ways I wish these tools were, which further drives their development. But only through the testing are we able to fully analyze what we have on our hands and what it has the potential to be. We'll turn off proportional editing. We'll turn off proportional editing because we're not barbarians. And let's just do another control click. So while this is a relatively simple shape, it was made in no time. I mean, I see on the video I've been talking for about 25 minutes here. So what I'm going to do is assign a material. What I'm going to do is with hard ops, I'm going to assign a material. There we go. And now let me show you the next part of BoxCutter. The integration with BoxCutter is also that the material cut system that has been introduced in Hard Ops 8 is present. So if we go with something like plastic, which is one of my favorites, and you can see that as I'm slicing, it's just leaving behind nice little reds. So, you know, sometimes I'll go through and I'll cut out a bunch of reds, and then I'll go on those reds and cut out some chromes, and the results just they're spectacular. At least for me, I love it. Material cutting was something I said long ago when we first created BoxCutter. It was like, man, material cutting is the future, but it doesn't exist yet. So you saw there that the whole object became red a moment ago. Let's try to replicate that. Went through. Now whenever that happens, that means that your cut did not work out. Sometimes if the geometry isn't optimal, or your cut is in an area where it just could not figure out a perfect solution, it will just make the whole object another color. So whenever that happens, I just undo and try it again, and usually just like in that example when I tried to replicate it, it just went through. But just like with booleans, I do take considerable effort while cutting to avoid hotlining. And so right here, you know, I probably want two cuts that are like almost the same, so we will copy it and then we'll paste it. So as long as I don't move the grid, it's even for that instance. There we go. There's a bad mirror. Let's try it down here. So what could be causing us issues? Could it be this edge going nowhere, that edge going nowhere, that edge going nowhere? Maybe. Let's go back in the front view and cut. Cross our fingers, and it works. So there's a perfect example of how garbage geo can cause Boolean issues, but it is easy to remedy. So usually when I get to this phase of me cutting out little slices, I don't have as many imperfections on the surface. Like if you have Boolean lines going everywhere because you're Boolean without any concern or regard for human life, then yeah, there's going to be a little collateral damage, and this stage isn't going to go as fluidly as you would want. So do keep that in mind. Right here, we're just cutting some little ticks off. Just some happy little red ticks. You know, bad boys, what are you going to do when your geometry is bad and you have spinal edges? I am coming for you. So, right here, a little clean mesh. These are just some dissolves. But you'll see that spinals always happen in an area where there's like a curvature or a plane change. So these are all mental notes I try to keep in mind. Like I think in previous videos I used to talk about like Boolean awareness. Like, you know, if your first step in making a project is to go in and start using Booleans, then it's probably not going to go well. Like the more pre-work you do in making it efficient, that then you are just going in with tools, putting yourself in a hole, just the better of a time that you have. Like, I mean, you know, I can't really say much in this context because I'm literally dicing cubes, And I'm also recommending to you, the new users, to be dicing cubes. But after that, try on some real world type objects, and you'll see the light too. Right here, I'm just going to demote, just give that a nice little turn. So that is what material cut is like, except I'll press Control tilde and we'll set it to another material. And just cutting. And cutting. Sometimes just retrying to cut a little bit more accurately sometimes can help you around these issues that you see come up where the whole mesh is red or blue as a result of inadequacies with the geo, because as we cut and slice more pieces off, like it's a more dangerous gamble. Now I must also add that the material cut system was added by Proxy and AR, so this is one of the more intensive features that we decided to go forward with on BoxCutter, along with Viewline. Viewline, I think, will be a very serious feature once it's complete. As of now, you're just seeing its initial implementation with the Alt-Shift middle mouse button, but we still have many more ideas for ways of expanding it, because view alignment is just one of those things. The other thing is cursor depth. Cursor depth in BoxCutter is something that I personally I just don't like. It's not that there's anything wrong with the cursor, the cursor's your homie, but I wish there was a more accurate way. Like, I wish that I could align my view, select a depth from a numerical display, and that was what was cutting in. However, it requires a little more thought and planning. So let's align to this view, go in orthographic, and we shall cut this piece off to depth. That's a very strange cut. I've never had a cut like that before, and because of that, I'm going to keep that cut. That'll be our happy little accident, our deepest, darkest secret. Was that I didn't mean to do that, but in history books, totally make it say I meant to do that. So we'll cut this one. I dissolved two edges there, so now it goes through. And you see, it just takes one edge to mess up a boolean. So, I mean, whenever you start using these, high-level boolean tools, there is also the understanding that you're aware of what's going on under your geo, because otherwise you'll just you'll get a random issue. So awareness and context of the situation and what you're dealing with is also important. Like, I know that this geo isn't its most efficient at this time, but it's efficient enough. For this one, I want to put this edge here, so that way I can get rid of that edge and just cut that off. So even the placement of your guidance edges play a role. So now let's take a look at what we got here. Let's put a sun in. The sun would look better. And of course, since we have hard ops, I'm going to choose render set 1. And we'll just let that sit for a minute. So I do want to come back and do a more advanced video on BoxCutter. We'll just call it Advanced BoxCutter or something, I don't know, BoxCutter Part 2. But I wanted this video to serve as a introduction of BoxCutter and at least how I use it. There's definitely some things I'm pretty sure I missed out and didn't cover in the video. However, I just wanted to cover the most crucial things that are important to you as the user, having fun with this. I hope everybody enjoys it and continues to use BoxCutter and show it love.